Custer by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. All valor died, not on the plains of Troy. Awake, my muse, awake. Be thine the joy to sing of deeds as dauntless and as brave as air lent luster to a warrior's grave. Sing of that noble soldier, nobler man, dear to the heart of each American. Sound forth his praise from sea to listening sea. Greece her Achilles claims, immortal Custer, we. Intrepid are earth's heroes, now as when the gods came down to measure strength with men. Let danger threaten, or let duty call, and self surrenders to the needs of all. Incurs vast perils, or, to save those dear, embraces death without one sigh or tear. Life's martyrs still the endless drama play, though no great Homer lives to chant their worth today. And if he chanted, who would list his songs? So hurried now the world's gold-seeking throngs. And yet shall silence mantle mighty deeds? Awake, dear muse, and sing though no ear heeds. Extol the triumphs, and bemoan the end of that true hero, lover, son, and friend, whose faithful heart in his last choice was shown. Death with the comrades dear, refusing flight alone. He who was born for battle and for strife, like some caged eagle frets in peaceful life. So Custer fretted when detained afar from scenes of stirring action and of war. And as the captive eagle in delight, when freedom offers, plumes himself for flight and soars away to thunder clouds on high, with palpitating wings and wild exultant cry. So lion-hearted Custer sprang to arms, and gloried in the conflict's loud alarms. But one dark shadow marred his bounding joy, and then the soldier vanished, and the boy. The tender son clung close, with sobbing breath, to her from whom each parting was new death. That mother who, like goddesses of old, gave to the mighty Mars 3 warriors brave and bold. Yet who, unlike those martial dames of yore, grew pale and shuddered at the sight of gore. A fragile being, born to grace the hearth, untroubled by the conflicts of the earth. Some gentle dove who reared young eaglets might, in watching those bold birdlings take their flight, feel what that mother felt who saw her sons rush from her loving arms to face death-dealing guns. But ere thy lyre is strung to martial strains of wars which sent our hero o'er the plains, to add the cypress to his laureled brow, be brave, my muse, and darker truths avow. Let justice ask a preface to thy songs, before the Indian's crimes declare his wrongs, before effects, wherein all horrors blend, declare the shameful cause, precursor of the end. When first this soil the great Columbus trod, he was less like the image of his God than those ingenious souls, unspoiled by art, who live so near to Mother Nature's heart. Those simple children of the wood and wave, as frank, as trusting, and as true as brave. Savage they were, when on some hostile raid, for where is he so high, whom war does not degrade? But dark deceit and falsehood's shameless shame they had not learned, until the white man came. He taught them, too, the lurking devil's joy in liquid lies, that lure but to destroy. With wily words, as false as they were sweet, he spread his snares for unsuspecting feet, paid truth with guile, and trampled in the dust their gentle childlike faith and unaffected trust. And for the sport of idle kings and knaves of nature's greater noblemen, made slaves. Alas, the hour when the wronged Indian knows his seeming benefactors are but foes, his kinsmen kidnapped and his lands possessed, the demon woke in that untortured breast. 400 years have rolled upon their way. The ruthless demon rules the red man to this day. If, In the morning of success, that grand invincible discoverer of our land had made no lodge or wigwam desolate to carry trophies to the proud and great. If on our history's page there were no blot left by the cruel rapine of Cabot, of Verrazan, and Hudson, dare we claim the Indian of the plains, today had been the same. For in this brief existence, not alone do our lives gather what our hands have sown, but we reap, too, what others long ago sowed, careless of the harvest that might grow. Thus hour by hour the humblest human souls inscribe in cipher on unending scrolls the history of nations yet to be, incite fierce bloody wars, to rage from sea to sea, or pave the way to peace. There is no past, so deathless are events, results so vast. And he who strives to make one act or hour stand separate and alone, needs first the power to look upon the breaking wave and say, these drops were bosomed by a cloud today. And those from far mid-ocean's crest were sent. So future, present, past, in one wide sea are blent. Oh, for the power to call to aid of mine own humble muse, the famed and sacred Nine, then might she fitly sing, and only then, of those intrepid and unflinching men who knew no home save ever-moving tents, and who twixt fierce and friendly elements and wild barbarians warred, yet unafraid, since love impels thy strains, sing, sing, my modest maid. Relate how Custer in midwinter sought far Washida's cold shores. Tell why he fought with savage nomads fortressed in deep snows. Woman, thou source of half the sad world's woes and all its joys, what sanguinary strife has vexed the earth and made contention rife because of thee? For, hidden in man's heart, aye, in his very soul, of his true self a part, the natural impulse and the wish belongs to win thy favor and redress thy wrongs. Alas, for woman, and for man, alas, if that dread hour should ever come to pass, when, through her new-born passion for control, she drives that beauteous impulse from his soul. What were her vaunted independence worth, if to obtain she sells her sweetest rights of birth? God formed fair woman for her true estate, man's tender comrade, and his equal mate, not his competitor in toil and trade, while coarser man, with greater strength was made to fight her battles and her rights protect. Aye, to protect the rights of earth's elect, the virgin maiden and the spotless wife. From immemorial time has man laid down his life. And now brave Custer's valiant army pressed across the dangerous desert of the West, to rescue fair white captives from the hands of brutal Cheyenne and Comanche bands. On Washida's bleak banks, 900 strong, it moved its slow, determined way along, past frontier homes left dark and desolate by the wild Indians' fierce and unrelenting hate, past forts where ranchmen, strong of heart and bold, wept now like orphan children as they told, with quivering muscles and with anguished breath, of captured wives whose fate was worse than death, past naked bodies whose disfiguring wounds spoke of the hellish hate of human hounds, past bleaching skeleton and rifled grave, on pressed the avenging host, to rescue and to save. Uncertain nature, like a fickle friend, worse than the foe on whom we may depend, turned on these dauntless souls a brow of wrath and hurled her icy javelins in their path. With treacherous quicksands, and with storms that blight, entrapped their footsteps and confused their sight. Yet on, urged Custer, on at any cost. No hour is there to waste, no moment to be lost. Determined, silent, on they rode, and on, like fabled centaurs, men and steeds seemed one. No bugle echoed and no voice spoke near, lest on some lurking Indian's listening ear the sound might fall. Through swift descending snow the stealthy guides crept, tracing out the foe. No fire was lighted, and no halt was made from haggard gray-lipped dawn till night lent friendly shade. Then, by the sheltering river's bank at last, the weary warriors paused for their repast. A couch of ice and falling snows forspread made many a suffering soldier's chilling bed. They slept to dream of glory and delight, while the pale fingers of the pitying night wove ghostly winding sheets for that doomed score who, ere another eve, should sleep to wake no more. But those who slept not saw with startled eyes far off, athwart dim unprotecting skies, ascending slowly with majestic grace, a lustrous rocket, rising out of space. "Behold the signal of the foe," cried one. "The field is lost before the strife's begun." Yet no, for see, yon rays spread near and far. It is the day's first smile, the radiant morning star. The long hours counting till the daylight broke, in whispered words the restless warriors spoke. They talked of battles, but they thought of home, for hearts are faithful though the feet may roam. Brave Hamilton, all eager for the strife, mused o'er that twofold mystery, death and life. "And when I die," quoth he, "mine be the part to fall upon the field, a bullet in my heart." At break of dawn the scouts crept in to say the foe was camped a rifle shot away. The baying of a dog, an infant's cry pierced through the air. Sleep fled from every eye. "To horse! To arms! The dead demand the dead! Let the grand charge upon the lodge be led! Let the Mosaic law, life for a life, pay the long-standing debt of blood! War to the knife!" So spake each heart in that unholy rage which fires the brain, when war the thoughts engage. War, hideous war, appealing to the worst and complex man, and waking that wild thirst for human blood which blood alone can slake. Yet for their country's safety, and the sake of tortured captives moaning in alarm, the Indian must be made to fear the law's strong arm. A noble vengeance burned in Custer's breast, but, as he led his army to the crest, above the wigwams, ready for the charge, he felt the heart within him, swelling large with human pity, as an infant's wail shrilled once again above the wintry gale. Then hosts of murdered children seemed to rise, and shame his halting thought with sad accusing eyes, and urge him on to action, stern of brow the just avenger, and the general now. He gives the silent signal to the band, which, all impatient, waits for his command. Cold lips to colder metal press. The air echoes those merry strains which mean despair for sleeping chieftain and for toiling squaw, but joy to those stern hearts which glory in the law of murder paying murder's awful debt. And now 4 squadrons in one charge are met. From east and west, from north and south they come, at call of bugle and at roll of drum. Their rifles rain hot hail upon the foe, who flee from danger in death's jaws to go. The Indians fight like maddened bulls at bay, and dying shrieks and groan wound the young ear of day. A pallid captive and a white-browed boy add to the tumult piercing cries of joy. As forth they fly, with high hope animate, a hideous squaw pursues them with her hate. Her knife descends with sickening force and sound. Their bloody entrails stain the snow-clad ground. She shouts with glee, then yells with rage and falls dead by her victim's side, pierced by avenging balls. Now war runs riot, carnage reigns supreme. All thoughts of mercy fade from Custer's scheme. Inhuman methods for inhuman foes, who feed on horrors and exult in woes. To conquer and subdue alone remains in dealing with the red man on the plains. The breast that knows no conscience yields to fear. Strike! Let the Indian meet his master now and here. With thoughts like these was Custer's mind engaged. The gentlest are the sternest when enraged. All felt the swift contagion of his ire, for he was one who could arouse and fire the coldest heart. So ardent was his own, his fearless eye, his calm, intrepid tone, bespoke the leader, strong with conscious power, whom following friends will bless, while foes will curse and cower. Again they charge, and now among the killed lies Hamilton, his wish so soon fulfilled. Brave Eliot pursues across the field the flying foe, his own young life to yield. But like the leaves in some autumnal gale, the red man fall in Washida's wild vale. Each painted face and black befeathered head still more repulsive seems with death's grim pallor wed. New forces gather on surrounding knolls, and fierce and fiercer war's red river rolls. With bright-hued pennants flying from each lance, the gaily costumed Kiowas advance. And bold Comanches, Bedouins of the land, infuse fresh spirit in the Cheyenne band. While from the ambush of some dark ravine flash arrows aimed by hands, unerring and unseen. The hours advance. The storm clouds roll away. Still furious and more furious grows the fray. The yellow sun makes ghastlier still the sight of painted corpses, staring in its light. No longer slaves, but comrades of their griefs. The squaws augment the forces of their chiefs. They chant weird dirges in a minor key, while from the narrow door of wigwam and teepee, cold glittering eyes above cold glittering steel their deadly purpose and their hate reveal. The click of pistols and the crack of guns proclaim war's daughters dangerous as her sons. She who would wield the soldier's sword and lance must be prepared to take the soldier's chance. She who would shoot must serve as target, too. The battle-frenzied men, infuriate, now pursue. In blood of warrior, woman and papoose, flow free as waters when some dam breaks loose. Consuming fire, the wanton friends of war, whom allies worship and whom foes abhor, now trails her crimson garments through the street, and ruin marks the passing of her feet. Full 60 lodges smoke upon the plain, and all the vale is strewn with bodies of the slain. And those who are not numbered with the dead before all conquering Custer now are led. To soothe their woes and calm their fears he seeks, an Osage guide interprets while he speaks. The vanquished captives, humbled, cowed and spent, read in the victor's eye his kind intent. The modern victor is as kind as brave. His captive is his guest, not his insulted slave. Mawissa, sister of the slaughtered chief of all the Cheyennes, listens, and her grief yields now to hope, and o'er her withered face there flits the stealthy cunning of her race. Then forth she steps, and thus begins to speak. To aid the fallen and support the weak is man's true province, and to ease the pain of those o'er whom it is his purpose now to reign. Let the strong chief unite with theirs his life, and take this black-eyed maiden for a wife. Then, moving with an air of proud command, she leads a dusky damsel by the hand, and places her at wondering Custer's side, invoking choicest blessings on the bride and all unwilling groom, who thus replies. Fair is the Indian maid, with bright bewildering eyes. But fairer still is one who, year on year, has borne man's burdens, conquered woman's fear, and at my side rode mile on weary mile, and faced all deaths, all dangers, with a smile. Wise as Minerva, as Diana brave, is she whom generous gods in kindness gave to share the hardship of my wandering life. Companion, comrade, friend, my loved and loyal wife. The white chief weds but one, Take back thy maid. He ceased, and o'er Melissa's face a shade of mingled scorn and pity and surprise sweeps as she slow retreats, and thus replies: Rich is the pale-faced chief in battle fain, but poor is he who but one wife may claim. Wives are the red-skinned heroes' rightful spoil. In war they prove his strength, in times of peace they toil. But hark! The bugle echoes o'er the plains, and sounds again those merry Celtic strains, which oft have called light feet to lilting dance. But now they mean the order to advance. Along the river's bank, beyond the hill, 2,000 foemen lodge, unconquered still. Ere falls night's curtain on this bloody play, the army must proceed, with fate of further fray. The weary warriors mount their foam-flecked steeds. With flags unfurled, the dauntless host proceeds. What though the foe outnumbers 2 to 1? Boldness achieves what strength oft leaves undone. A daring mien will cause brute force to cower, and courage is the secret source of power. As Custer's column wheels upon their sight, the frightened red men yield the untried field by flight. Yet when these conquering heroes sink to rest, dissatisfaction gnaws the leader's breast. For far away across vast seas of snows, held prisoners still by hostile Arapahoes and Cheyennes unsubdued, 2 captives wait. On God and Custer hangs their future fate. May the Great Spirit nerve the mortal's arm to rescue suffering souls from worse than death's alarm. But ere they seek to rescue the oppressed, the valiant dead, in state, are laid to rest. Mourned Hamilton, the faithful and the brave. 900 comrades follow to the grave. And close behind the banner-hidden corse, all draped in black, walks mournfully his horse. While tears of sound drip through the sunlit day, a soldier may not weep, but drums and bugles may. Now, muse, recount how after long delays and dangerous marches through untrodden ways, where cold and hunger on each hour attend, at last the army gains the journey's end. An Indian village bursts upon the eye. 200 lodges, sleep encompassed lie. There captives moan their anguished prayers through tears, while in the silent dawn the armied answer nears. To snatch 2 fragile victims from the foe, 900 men have traversed leagues of snow. Each woe they suffered in a hostile land, the flame of vengeance in their bosoms fanned. They thirst for slaughter, and the signal wait to wrest the captives from their horrid fate. Each warrior's hand upon his rifle falls. Each savage soldier's heart for awful bloodshed calls. And one, in years a youth, in woe a man, sad Brewster, scarred by sorrow's blighting ban, looks, panting, where his captive sister sleeps, and o'er his face the shade of murder creeps. His nostrils quiver like a hungry beast who scents anear the bloody carnal feast. He longs to leap down in that slumbering vale and leave no foe alive to tell the awful tale. Not so. Calm Custer, sick of gory strife, he hopes for rescue with no loss of life, and plans the bloodless battle of the plains, where reasoning mind outwits mere savage brains. The sullen soldiers follow where he leads. No gun is emptied, and no foeman bleeds. Fierce for the fight and eager for the fray, they look upon their chief in undisguised dismay. He hears the murmur of their discontent, but sneers can never change a strong mind's bent. He knows his purpose and he does not swerve, and with a quiet mien and steady nerve he meets dark looks where'er his steps may go, and silence that is bruising as a blow. Where late were smiles and words of ardent praise, so pass the lagging weeks of wearying delays. Inaction is not always what it seems, and Custer's mind with plan and project teems. Fixed in his peaceful purpose he abides, with none takes counsel and in none confides, but slowly weaves about the foe a net, which leaves them wholly at his mercy. Yet he strikes no fateful blow, he takes no life, and holds in check his men, who pant for bloody strife. Intrepid warrior and skilled diplomat, in his strong hands he holds the red man's fate. The craftiest plot he checks with counterplot, till tribe by tribe the tricky foe is brought to fear his vengeance and to know his power, as man's fixed gaze will make a wild beast cower. So these crude souls feel that unflinching will which draws them by its force, yet does not deign to kill. And one by one the hostile Indians send their chiefs to seek a peaceful treaty's end. Great councils follow. Skill with cunning copes and conquers it. And Custer sees his hope so long delayed, like stars storm hidden, rise to radiate with splendor all his skies. The stubborn Cheyennes, cowed at last by fear, leading the captive pair o'er spring-touched hills appear. With breath suspended, now the whole command waits the approach of that equestrian band. Nearer it comes, still nearer, then a cry, half sob, half shriek, goes piercing God's blue sky. And Brewster, like a nimble-footed doe, or like an arrow hurrying from a bow, shoots swiftly through the intervening space, and the lost sister claps in sorrowing love's embrace. And men who leaned o'er Hamilton's rude bier and saw his dead dear face without a tear. Strong souls who early learned the manly art of keeping from the eye what's in the heart. Soldiers who look unmoved on death's pale brow, avert their eyes to hide their moisture now. The briny flood forced back from shores of woe needs but to touch the strands of joy to overflow. About the captives welcoming warriors crowd, all eyes are wet, and Brewster sobs aloud. Alas, the ravage wrought by toil and woe on faces that were fair 12 moons ago, bronzed by exposure to the heat and cold, still young in years, yet prematurely old, by insults humbled and by labor worn, they stand in youth's bright hour, of all youth's graces shorn. A scanty garment rudely made of sacks hangs from their loins, bright blankets drape their backs. About their necks are twisted, tangled strings of gaudy beads, while tinkling wire and rings of yellow brass on wrists and fingers glow. Thus, to assuage the anger of the foe, the cunning Indians decked the captive pair, who in 1 year have known a lifetime of despair. But love can resurrect from sorrow's tomb the vanished beauty and the faded bloom. As sunlight lifts the bruised flower from the sod, can lift crushed hearts to hope, for love is God. Already now in freedom's glad release, the hunted look of fear gives place to peace. And in their eyes at thought of home appears that rainbow light of joy which brightest shines through tears. About the leader thick the warriors crowd, late loud in censure, now in praises loud. They laud the tactics, and the skill extol which gained a bloodless yet a glorious goal. Alone and lonely in the path of right, full many a brave soul walks. When gods requite and crown his actions as their worth demands, among admiring throngs the hero always stands. Back to the east the valorous squadrons sweep. The earth, arousing from her long, cold sleep, throws from her breast the coverlet of snow, revealing spring's soft charms which lie below. Suppressed emotions in each heart arise. The wooer wakens and the warrior dies. The bird of prey is vanquished by the dove, and thoughts of bloody strife give place to thoughts of love. The mighty plains, devoid of whispering trees, guard well the secrets of departed seas. Where once great tides swept by with ebb and flow, the scorching sun looks down in tearless woe. And fierce tornadoes in ungoverned pain mourn still the loss of that mysterious main. Across this ocean bed the soldiers fly. Home is the gleaming goal that lures each eager eye. Like some elixir which the gods prepare, they drink the viewless tonic of the air, sweet with the breath of startled antelopes which speed before them over swelling slopes. Now like a serpent writhing over the moor, the column curves and makes a slight detour, as Custer leads 1,000 men away to save a ground bird's nest which in the footpath lay. Mile following mile, against the leaning skies, far off they see a dull dark cloud arise. The hunter's instinct in each heart is stirred, beholding there in one stupendous herd 100,000 buffaloes. O great unwieldy proof of nature's cruder state, rough remnant of a prehistoric day, thou, with the red man, too, must shortly pass away. Upon those spreading plains is there not room for man and bison, that he seals its doom? What pleasure lies, and what seductive charm in slaying with no purpose but to harm? Alas! that man, unable to create, should thirst forever to exterminate, and in destruction find his fiercest joy. The gods alone create, gods only should destroy. The flying hosts a straggling bull pursue, unerring aim, the skilful Custer drew. The wounded beast turns madly in despair, and man and horse are lifted high in air. The conscious steed needs not the guiding rein. Back with a bound and one quick cry of pain he springs, and halts, well knowing where must fall in that protected frame the sure death-dealing ball. With minds intent upon the morrow's feast, the men surround the carcass of the beast. Rolled on his back, he lies with lolling tongue. Soon to the saddle savory steaks are hung, and from his mighty head great tufts of hair are cut as trophies for some lady fair. To vultures then they leave the torn remains of what an hour ago was monarch of the plains. Far off, two bulls in jealous war engage. Their bloodshot eyeballs roll in furious rage. With maddened hoofs they mutilate the ground, and loud their angry bellows resound. With shaggy heads bent low they plunge and roar, till both broad bellies drip with purple gore. Meanwhile, the heifer, whom the twain desire, stands browsing near the pair, indifferent to their ire. At last she lifts her lazy head and heeds the clattering hoofs of swift advancing steeds. Off to the herd with cumbrous gait she runs, and leaves the bulls to face the threatening guns. No more for them the free life of the plains, its mating pleasures and its warring pains. Their quivering flesh shall feed unnumbered foes. Their tufted tails adorn the soldiers' saddle bows. Now into camp the conquering hosts advance. On burnished arms the brilliant sunbeams glance. Brave Custer leads, blond as the gods of old. Back from his brow blow clustering locks of gold. And, like a jewel in a brook, there lies, far in the depths of his blue-guarded eyes, the thought of one whose smiling lips upcurled mean more of joy to him than plaudits of the world. The troops in columns of platoons appear close to the leader following. Ah, here the poetry of war is fully seen, its prose forgotten, as against the green of Mother Nature. Uniformed in blue, the soldiers pass for Sheridan's review. The motion music of the moving throng is like a silent tune, set to a wordless song. The guides and trailers, weird in war's array, precede the troops along the grassy way. They chant wild songs, and with loud noises and stress, in savage manner savage joy express. The Indian captives, blanketed in red, on ponies mounted, by the scouts are led. Like sumac bushes, etched on evening skies, against the blue-clad troops, this patch of color lies. High o'er the scene vast music billows bound, and all the air is liquid with the sound of those invisible compelling waves. Perchance they reach the low and lonely graves where sleep brave Eliot and Hamilton, and whisper there the tale of victory won. Or do the souls of soldiers tried and true come at the bugle call, and march in grand review? The pleased commander watches in surprise the splendid pageant surge before his eyes. Not in those mighty battle days of old did scenes like this upon his sight unfold. But now it passes. Drums and bugles cease to dash war billows on the shores of peace. The victors smile on fair broad-bosomed sleep, while in her soothing arms the vanquished cease to weep. As in the long dead days marauding hosts of Indians came from far Siberian coasts, and drove the peaceful Aztec from their grounds, despoiled their homes, but left their telltale mounds. So has the white man with the Indians done. Now with their backs against the setting sun, the remnants of a dying nation stand, and view the lost domain, once their beloved land. Upon the vast Atlantic's leagues of shore, the happy red man's tent is seen no more. And from the deep blue lakes which mirror heaven, his bounding bark canoe was long since driven. The mighty woods, those temples where his God spoke to his soul, are leveled to the sod. And in their place tall church spires point above, while priests proclaim the law of Christ, the King of love. The avaricious and encroaching rail seized the wide fields which knew the Indian's trail. Back to the reservations in the west, the native owners of the land were pressed, and selfish cities, harbingers of want, shut from their vision each accustomed haunt. Yet hungry progress, never satisfied, gazed on the western plains, and gazing, longed and sighed. As some strange bullock in a pasture field compels the herds to fear him, and to yield the juicy grass plats and the cooling shade, until, despite their greater strength, afraid, they huddle in some corner spot and cower before the monarch's all-controlling power. So has the white man driven from its place by his aggressive greed, Columbia's native race. Yet when the bull pursues the herds at bay, incensed they turn, and dare dispute his sway. And so the Indians turned, when men forgot their sacred word, and trespassed on the spot, the lonely little spot of all their lands, the reservation of the peaceful bands. But lust for gold all conscience kills in man. Gold in the Black Hills! Gold! The cry arose and ran. From lip to lip, as flames from tree to tree leap till the forest is one fiery sea. And through the country surged that hot unrest which thirst for riches wakens in the breast. In mighty throngs the fortune hunters came, despoiled the red man's lands and slew his game, broke solemn treaties and defied the law. And all these ruthless acts the nation knew and saw. Man is the only animal that kills just for the wanton love of slaughter, spills the blood of lesser things to see it flow, lures like a friend, to murder like a foe the trusting bird and beast, and coward-like, deals covert blows he dare not boldly strike. The brutes have finer souls, and only slay when torn by hunger's pangs, or when to fear a prey. The pale-faced hunter, insolent and bold, pursued the bison while he sought for gold. And on the hungry red man's own domains he left the rotting and unused remains, to foul with sickening stench each passing wind, and rouse the demon in the savage mind. Save in the heart where virtues dominate, injustice always breeds its natural offspring, hate. The chieftain of the Sioux, great Sitting Bull, mused o'er the wrongs, and felt his heart swell full of bitter vengeance. Torn with hate's unrest, he called a council and his braves addressed. From fair Wisconsin's shimmering lakes of blue, long years ago the white man drove the Sioux. Made bold by conquest and inflamed by greed, he still pursues our tribes, and still our ranks recede. Fair are the white chief's promises and words, but dark his deeds who robs us of our herds. He talks of treaties, asks the right to buy, then takes by force, not waiting our reply. He grants us lands for pastures and abodes, to devastate them by his iron roads. But now from happy spirit lands, a friend draws near the hunted Sioux, to strengthen and defend. While walking in the fields I saw a star. Unconsciously I followed it afar. It led me on to valleys filled with light, where danced our noble chieftains slain in fight. Black Kettle, first of all that host I knew, he whom the strong-armed Custer foully slew. And then a spirit took me by the hand, the great Messiah King, who comes to free the land. Suns were his eyes, a speaking tear his voice, whose rainbow sounds made listening hearts rejoice, and thus he spake: "The red man's hour draws near, when all his lost domain shall reappear. The elk, the deer, the bounding antelope, shall here return to grace each grassy slope." He waved his hands above the fields, and lo! down through the valleys came a herd of buffalo. The wondrous vision vanished, but I knew that Sitting Bull must make the promise true. Great spirits plan what mortal man achieves. The hand works magic when the heart believes. Arouse, ye braves! Let not the foe advance. Arm for the battle and begin the dance. The sacred dance in honor of our slain, who will return to earth ere many moons shall wane. Thus Sitting Bull, the chief of wily knaves, worked on the superstitions of his braves, mixed truth with lies, and stirred to mad unrest the warlike instinct in each savage breast. A curious product of unhappy times, the natural offspring of unnumbered crimes. He used low cunning and dramatic arts to startle and surprise those crude, untortured hearts. Out from the lodges pour a motley throng, slow measures chanting of a dirge-like song. In one great circle dizzily they swing. A squaw and chief alternate in the ring. Coarse raven locks stream over robes of white. Their deep-set orbs emit a lurid light. And as through pine trees moan the wind's refrains, so swells and dies away the ghostly graveyard strains. Like worded wine is music to the ear, and long indulged makes mad the hearts that hear. The dancers, drunken with the monotone of oft-repeated notes, now shriek and groan and pierce their ruddy flesh with sharpened spears. Still more excited when the blood appears. With warlike yells, high in the air they bound, then in a death-like trance fall prostrate on the ground. They wake to tell weird stories of the dead, while fresh performers to the ring are led. The sacred nature of the dance is lost. War is their cry, red war at any cost. Insane for blood, they wait for no command, but plunge marauding through the frightened land. Their demon hearts on devil's pleasures bent, for each new foe surprised, new torturing deaths invent. Staked to the earth one helpless creature lies, flames at his feet and splinters in his eyes. Another groans with coals upon his breast, while round the pyre the Indians dance and jest. A crying child is brained upon a tree, the swooning mother saved from death, to be the slave and plaything of a filthy knave, whose sins would startle hell, whose clay defile a grave. Their cause was right, their methods all were wrong. Pity and censure both to them belong. Their woes were many, but their crimes were more. The soulless Satan holds not in his store such awful tortures as the Indian's wrath keeps for the hapless victim in his path. And if the last lone remnants of that race were by the white man swept from off the earth's fair face, were every red man slaughtered in a day, still would that sacrifice but poorly pay for one insulted woman captive's woes. Again great Custer in his strength arose, more daring, more intrepid than of old. The passing years had touched and turned to gold the ever-widening aureole of fame that shone upon his brow and glorified his name. Wise men make laws, then turn their eyes away, while fools and knaves ignore them day by day. And unmolested, fools and knaves at length induce long wars which sap a country's strength. The sloth of leaders, ruling but in name, has dragged full many a nation down to shame. A word unspoken by the rightful lips has dyed the land with blood, and blocked the sea with ships. The world withheld when Indians asked for aid, came when the red man started on his raid. What justice with a gesture might have done was left for nosy war with bellowing gun. And who save Custer and his gallant men could calm the tempest into peace again? What other hero in the land could hope with Sitting Bull, the fierce and lawless one, to cope? What other warrior skilled enough to dare surprise that human tiger in his lair, sure of his strength, unconscious of his fame, out from the quiet of the camp he came? And stately as Diana at his side, Elizabeth, his wife and alway bride, and Margaret, his sister, rode apace. Love's clinging arms he left to meet death's cold embrace. As the bright column wound along its course, the smiling leader turned upon his horse to gaze with pride on that superb command. 1,200 men, the picked of all the land, inured to hardship and made strong by strife, their lithe-limbed bodies breathed of outdoor life, while on their faces, resolute and brave, hope stamped its shining seal, although their thoughts were grave. The sad-eyed women halted in the dawn, and waved farewell to dear ones riding on. The modest miss picked up her robes and ran before the sun god's swift pursuing van. And suddenly there burst on startled eyes the sight of soldiers marching in the skies. That phantom host, a phantom Custer led, mirage of dire portent, forecasting days ahead. The soldiers' children, flaunting mimic flags, played by the roadside, striding sticks for nags. Their mothers wept, indifferent to the crowd who saw their tears and heard them sob aloud. Old Indian men and squaws crooned forth a rhythm sung by the tribes from immemorial time. And over all the drums' incessant beat mixed with the scout's weird rune and tramp of myriad feet. So flawless was the union of each part, the mighty column moved as by one heart, pulsed through the air, like some sad song well sung, which gives delight, although the soul is wrung. Farther and fainter to the sight and sound the beautiful embodied poem wound, till like a ribbon, stretched across the land, seemed the long narrow line of that receding band. The lot of those who in the silence wait is harder than the fighting soldier's fate. Back to the lonely post 2 women passed, with unaccustomed sorrow overcast. Too sad for sighs, too desolate for tears. The dark forebodings of long widowed years and preparation for the awful blow hung on the door of hope the sable badge of woe. Unhappy muse, for thee no song remains, save the sad miserere of the plains. Yet though defeat, not triumph, ends the tale, great victors sometimes are the souls that fail. All glory lies not in the goals we reach, but in the lessons which our actions teach. And he who, conquered, to the end believes in God and in himself, though vanquished, still achieves. Ah, grand as rash was that last fatal raid the little group of daring heroes made. 220 intrepid men rode out to war. Not one came back again. Like fiends incarnate from the depths of hell, 5,000 foemen rose with deafening yell, and swept that vale as with a simoon's breath. But like the gods of old, each martyr met his death. Like gods they battled, and like gods they died. Hour following hour that little band defied the hordes of red men swarming o'er the plain, till scarce a score stood upright mid the slain. Then in the lull of battle, creeping near, a scout breathed low in Custer's listening ear. Death lies before, dear life remains behind. Mount thy sure-footed steed, and hastened with the wind. A second silence. Custer dropped his head, his lips slow moving as when prayers are said. 2 words he breathed, God and Elizabeth, then shook his long locks in the face of death, and with a final gesture turned away to join that fated few who stood at bay. Ah! Deeds like that the Christ in man reveal. Let fame descend her throne at Custer's shrine to kneel. Too late to rescue, but in time to weep, his tardy comrades came, as if asleep he lay, so fair, that even hellish hate withheld its hand and dared not mutilate. By fiends who knew not honor, honored still, he smiled and slept on that far western hill. Cast down thy lyre, O Muse, thy song is done. Let tears complete the tale of him who failed. yet one.